Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Isabella. I do a couple of different things, but one is teaching computing for half of my week in a school in central London to girls, primary age girls. And the other thing is working across different schools and organisations, helping with computer science curriculum, including writing some of the Barefoot resources and also volunteering for them too. So this afternoon's session is designed to be a really quick kind of whistle-stop tour into what Barefoot has to offer, and how hopefully you'll be able to use some of those resources to support both your teaching and also perhaps your own professional development too. All of the resources that I share with you, talk about, are all freely available for download from the website you can see on the screen, barefootcomputing.org. You do need an account to be able to download them. So if you haven't got one of those, at some point you might want to sign up for a free account. All of the resources within the site are free. So just a really quick background on what Barefoot Computing is. So it's initially established by the DFE to help primary teachers recognise that there was a sort of gap in knowledge there. Resources originally were quite heavily computer science focused, but now cover a more broader range of computing and computing science topics, including IT, digital literacy too. And as you can see, they're endorsed by Education Scotland, the Welsh Government, DFE in Northern Ireland too. So they're used very widely across the UK, but also internationally too. And I'm going to be showing you some of the activities and some subject knowledge resources as well, which are all developed by teachers for teachers and informed by academic research. So I thought I'd just start by giving you a little flavour of what a Barefoot resource might look like. Now, some of the resources are really short and quick and things you can do if you've got a spare 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning or the end of a day or lesson. Some of them are much longer kind of lesson activities and even into mini schemes of work. This is one of the quicker activities. Think of a film. The idea behind this one is that in 5 words, a child or a pair of children take it in turns to think of a film and describe it using only 5 words. So if I was doing it in words, I might, for example, say reindeer, princess, snowflake. And hopefully by the time I haven't even got to 5, I've got to 3, you might say, Frozen. But also sometimes I do it with emojis, which is quite fun, or little pictures. So the skill that we're trying to get across here is abstraction. And I'll talk a bit more about these computational thinking skills as we go through. But essentially, we're thinking of simple, fun ways to try and teach these concepts and principles. Abstraction, if you haven't heard that word before, is essentially taking something, taking the detail out of something so that we can focus on what's really important. So that's what we're doing when we're thinking of those 5 words or thinking of those 5 pictures. So how can we simplify things by removing detail that we don't need? And you'll see as you look through that all of our activities and resources are very cross-curricular. So you'll see lots of links which are all identified on the plans to various subjects. So you might be looking at abstraction, but you might be looking at it through maybe maths, or you might be looking at it through literacy, English, etc. So that's just a little flavour of the kind of activity that you might find on the site. So what we're going to look at specifically is our activities for 5 to 11s, our activities for 3 to 5s, our online safety and cyber resources, let you know about our workshops if you haven't discovered those yet, and also our self-teach resources. All of our resources revolve around this computational thinkers poster, which can be downloaded from the site. We have a primary version and we have an early years version, which are both age appropriate. But what you'll see essentially is concepts on the left and approaches on the right. So the concepts are the kind of subject knowledge that we might hope a child would develop while they're with us. We mentioned abstraction already, and some of those you'll probably be familiar with, like algorithms and patterns. Some of them we look at all the time in other subjects anyway. But on the right, you'll see the approaches, which is the skills and behaviours that, again, you'll be very familiar with because these are often things we do all the time. You may or may not use the word tinkering, but essentially it's just changing things, trying stuff out, see what happens. So perhaps they're learning a new piece of software and they're just having a little play at first. Many of our activities are unplugged, meaning that they don't need any technology to be taught, and some of them are plugged. So as you go through, you'll see that there's a mixture. So the computational thinking thinkers poster is kind of key to all our resources, and you'll see those concepts and approaches highlighted on all of the activities that you do, that you download if you decide to do that. We've got over 100 activities in total, and so with the ones for 3 to 5s, then 5 to 7, etc., and then specific SEND activities too. So just to give you a flavour of some of the 5 to 7 activities, and of course we might say 5 to 7, but many of them can be adapted for different age groups. I've put a couple on here so you can see there's lots of stuff around bbots. So if you're into bbots, there's loads of great ideas for using those. Then you can see some about Scratch Junior there. We've got colourful kits about data. We've got a little bit of Scratch debugging. And then Crazy Characters is probably our all-time favourite Barefoot activity. So if you haven't ever tried a Barefoot activity, Crazy Character Algorithms is a really good one to start with. And it's unplugged and it's really simple to manage in a classroom. So I'd recommend that one. But just so you know kind of how they might look, this is a little kind of snapshot of Bbot 123, which is an activity that I really like, designed for 5 to 7s, but I have used it with older children. And in this activity, the pupils write the algorithm that they're trying to draw, and they test it using a fake bot. So it's that little picture you can see there, but it's kind of Bbot size. And so they test it to check their algorithm. They go back and debug it if they need to, and then they get their real Bbot, and obviously if you have those available, and then run their algorithm. So anything that's kind of a printable that we talk about in an activity will all be included with the download. So for example, in this one, you'll have the FakeBot downloads, kind of multi ones on a page to sort of help you. You'll have those direction cards that you can see on the screen there, and you'll have those digits, which you can see, those kind of digital style numbers, which you print out, and then the Bbot travels around. So that activity always goes down really well. Another good one to try if you have Bbots. Or don't forget, if you don't have them, you could always use the Bbot emulator that's online, and that's linked in the plan too. So even if you don't have the resources, it doesn't mean you can't do the activity. And looking at some of the activities for 8 to 11s, again, we've got some Scratch activities, we've got some networks and systems activities, modelling the internet, some things which are sometimes quite tricky to teach, but we've tried to find ways of making them fun and kind of interactive for children. You can see a couple of data activities there. The code cracking on the top left is a really nice activity set, and it's actually 6 lessons, and it's linked to code cracking in World War II. So if you're looking for something perhaps with a history link, or maybe you're doing World War II in history, there's lots in there about the work of Alan Turing, etc. It's a really nice one to have a look at. So that's an example of some of our activities which are a bit more than just one lesson. So it's worth having a look through there. This is an example of one of our newest activities for that age range, and it's our AI Explorers activity. So we release a few new activities every year. And I just wanted to show you here that when you download an activity, particularly one for sort of 5 to 11-year-olds, it will come with everything you need to deliver that lesson. So you'll have a full lesson plan designed for a non-specialist, so giving you everything you need really step by step and clear. You'll have the slide deck that you need if you want to use to run your lesson, and you'll have any linked resources, handouts, worksheets, etc. And it might be that you're printing them, or it might be that you're putting them in something like Google Classroom, or whichever system you use for digital worksheets. I thought I'd put in a few examples of slides from those slide decks, so you can just see the kinds of activities that the older children might look at. So this is again from AI Explorers, the next few slides, and they're doing in this particular part of the activity, they're thinking about driverless cars, and they're thinking about all the objects that a driverless car might have to detect, and they're labeling those objects. So we've tried with the AI explorers to kind of grasp all the main concepts of AI, but in an age appropriate way. So they're doing a little bit of object identification and labeling there. They then start thinking about a little bit of digital literacy. So they're thinking about how we can tell if images are real or not. And each of those images was created by AI. And then they look at data sets, and they start just thinking about perhaps bias in data sets, again, at an age-appropriate level. So they think about data sets that might be used to train models, and perhaps actually sometimes there's issues with the data sets that are used. So that's just a few snapshots of how the lesson slides might look. So very clear, easy to follow, and of course, you can edit them if you wish to make them really appropriate for your learners. So I'll show you in a second how you can download any of these if you haven't found them, if you haven't found that for yourself. But I just wanted to highlight that we also have recently rejigged, revamped the way we can search for Barefoot activities. So because we've got so many activities, it can be a little bit kind of overwhelming if you don't really know what you're searching for. So what we've done is we've grouped them by age. So you'll see on the left, for example, this is the 5 to 7-year-old group. And then you'll see under that, we've also grouped them within that age range by theme. So if you're looking just for programming activities, you can click on the plus to expand programming, and then over on the right, you can see what you would get. So we've just tried to kind of filter it down into hopefully little mini sections that will make it easier for you to find what you are looking for. And I'll show you that in action in just a sec, but that's just something to be aware of. So if you think that might be helpful, then that could be good to have a try with. What you've seen so far has been really resources from 5 to 11. We also have a really comprehensive and really popular early level, early years in our sort of naming of it, resource bank. And this is popular with nurseries, classes in schools, childminders, a whole range of people, which is really brilliant to see. So I just want to briefly go over how that looks. And if that's not the age you teach, then it would be great if you could share it with perhaps if you have colleagues who would find it useful. So for each of these sections that you can see for the resource sets, there's usually 3 to 6 activities in each set. So the seasons that you can see at the top there are really popular: autumn, winter, summer, and spring. Each have 3 early level resources within them. I'll show you an example in just a sec. But if you haven't looked, perhaps autumn is a great place to start, or maybe winter if you're planning ahead. Super Space, I actually got a call with Eva tomorrow that learners can join us on using some of the Super Space resources. 9:15, I'm sure you can still book on. Perhaps, Brian, we can give the link at the end. We've got People Who Help Us, which is, I'll give you a preview of in a moment, but that's really popular. It's our newest early years resource. Boats Ahoy and Busybodies. So there are our activity sets. And then we've also got some information for practitioners. So things like the early years poster, an overview of computational thinking in early years, some prompt cards that might be good for practitioners, a workshop on early years computational thinking. I'll show you how you can book onto that in a sec, and some online safety resources for early years too. So really lots and lots of stuff to look at there. There is a web link on that slide which will take you straight there, or you can just find it from the main Barefoot page. So you get an idea of how the early years, early level resources look, because they're slightly different from the older ones, as you might expect. This particular People Who Help Us one has 3 activities within it: delivery day, pattern patrol, and firefighter fun. What we've tried to do with these, all of the early level ones are unplugged, so there's no technology required, although we have put in suggestions for how you might link this to technology if that's something you're interested in. We've tried to take topics that we know lots of early years settings look at, so like people who help us, for example, and the seasons. And really, with these, they're not designed to be any extra work for practitioners. They're designed to pull out the things that early years practitioners are already doing. So, for example, in Delivery Day, the computational thinking concepts and approaches that are covered are algorithms, decomposition, and collaborating. And in this activity, again, all these principles are provided, or you can use real cars or delivery trucks on the mat, and you're in charge of delivering the parcels to the right place by looking at the labels and thinking about your directions and predicting a route. So that's the first activity. The second one in the People Who Help Us set is Pattern Patrol, which is a really nice activity all about pattern, but also creating and logic. And some of it is quite heavily scaffolded and some of it is a bit more open-ended, designing own patterns. So it depends on what your children are ready for as to sort of where you take that activity. And the third activity in the set is about firefighter fun. So in this one, they have a printout of a firefighter sort of outline, and they're designing a uniform for a firefighter. So we're back to abstraction here that we mentioned with the 5-word film game. And they look at lots of different pictures of firefighters in uniforms. And they're kind of thinking, what is really essential for a firefighter's uniform and what isn't. So, for example, they might decide that a helmet is essential and a visor is essential, but perhaps they decide that the colour of the boots isn't essential, for example. So they're really thinking about, you know, picking out key parts is essentially how abstraction can look at that age. So taking something quite complicated, but trying to really put it into a fun activity that's both easy for practitioners to follow, but also gets across the right skills and concepts. We also have, as you might expect, lots of activities within those early years sets to develop along with pattern, but also algorithms. So you can see a few examples there on the screen. Pumpkin soup is a really lovely one from the autumn set, which goes really nicely with the pumpkin soup book. If your children look at that one, where they sort of reorder the steps in a recipe and then make the soup if they like. But you can see there are lots of other examples of how we can start to think about teaching algorithms at that very early stage. So one's about growth, one's about making boats, a rabbit trying to get to the carrot. That's from our spring set. Or another one in autumn is a leaf labyrinth where the children make a life-size leaf maze, and then a recycled material bird feeder as well. So absolutely loads of stuff there that you can sort of get really hands-on, but really pulling out that computational thinking. Okay, right, whizzing through. I mentioned also that we have quite a comprehensive set of online safety and cyber resources. And again, these have quite a nice clear progression between them. So you'll notice if you look at those in the 4 to 6, we have a really lovely keep it safe activity where children are looking. It's a kind of Where's Wally style big image. That's just a little piece of it there. And they're looking for things that have locks or passcodes or passwords or pins. And they can have the printout and circle it, or sometimes I just get it up on the screen and we do it all together. But they're starting like at a really early level, thinking about keeping our stuff safe and keeping our stuff secure. And while we might have a password on an iPad or a PIN code on a phone, etc. And then we also have a technology scavenger hunt where they're thinking about ownership of devices. So again, the really early stages of thinking about what is and isn't okay for us to use. So they do a little scavenger hunt and see what they can find, who owns it, do we have permission to use it, etc., etc. And it's very much thinking about real objects at that age rather than digital ones. And what you'll notice is when they go on to 5 to 7, we're starting to now think about ownership and permissions, but for digital objects. So maybe for pictures or maybe for videos, or maybe for music. And so we've got Who Does This Belong To and Do the Right Thing there, which are two great activities also to have a look at. Cyber Snakes is a really fun printable version of Snakes and Ladders. It works best done with either adults and children together, so either practitioners at school or in your setting with children, or it's a really nice one to send home for parents to get a bit of sort of parental engagement, but also get parents thinking about online safety too. So that's all printable board, printable dice even. So it's worth having a look at if you teach that age. And then we go on to our online safety cyber resources for 7 to 9. They start to look at, the jury looks at the laws around using computers, and specifically the Computer Misuse Act. So there's some really nice interactive activities there where they can decide to look at different scenarios, and they are the jury, so they're passing down sentence. And in the 9 to 11, sorry, we've got You're the Cybersecurity Expert. So building on that, but hearing from a real cybersecurity expert and thinking about cybercrime, code cracking, that kind of thing. And The Fisherman is one of our interactive games, which also links really nicely with online safety and cyber too. So hopefully, if you have a look at those, you'll see there's a really nice, clear progression, so you can make sure that what you're providing for online safety just is really appropriate for them. As well as the activities and resources for children, we also offer 3 different workshops. Again, all of these are free to book onto. You could book on as an individual, or sometimes schools book teams on for inserts, etc. after school. I'll show you in a moment when we look at the site where you can do that, but there are 3 different workshops. The sort of original workshop is the computational thinking one, which is really nice if you just want to get going and start thinking about those approaches and concepts that I mentioned on the poster. Lots of hands-on activities within the call. So these sessions are all online. Lots of activities within the call, so people will leave with really good ideas of stuff they can try straight away. We also have an early years workshop. So this will show in more detail those early years resources that you just had a little flavour of. And then we have a programming workshop. So this is now focusing on Scratch, and it's focusing on the concepts of sequence, repetition, and selection within Scratch. So it might be that you have teachers who are teaching Scratch who might benefit from that. You might want to do the computational thinking one first and then get them onto the programming workshop. You might want to have a go for yourself first and see what it's like, and then book them on. So they're really popular and really easy to book on because we run lots of dates of those. And we're almost there. The self-teach resources we have is a suite of resources and kind of guides for your own CPD. So we have guides to explain the computational thinking concepts and approaches, but also computing science concepts and approaches. So you can see on the screen there, each of those little kind of sections, when you click on it, will take you into that concept or approach. It will tell you about it at in a really kind of easy to understand way. But what I really like about them is it will then give you ideas for how it might look at different ages. So you're developing your own knowledge on it, but also it's hopefully giving you some ideas about how you could teach that and how it might look for 3 to 5s, 5 to 7s, 7 to 9s, etc. There's also guides to using Scratch in there and the different versions of Scratch, which sometimes can be a bit confusing, and also other CPD opportunities within there too. So it's definitely worth having a look there if you haven't already. And then just a couple of bits which I think are really nice that you may not have seen. Our Barefoot Bites are bite-size activities, all unplugged, I think. I'll show you how to get to them, but they're very quick activities that still link to the concepts and principles, concepts and approaches, but they're not kind of full lessons. So you might want to have a little look at those. and our interactive learning games, I mentioned the Fisherman as being a great cyber one, but there's lots of others there that you might like and your children might enjoy too. So it might be quite nice to see if perhaps they fit into any of your plans. Okay, before we say thank you, I'm going to show you now, just very briefly, how to access all of these resources that I have been talking about. So let's just find that. Okay, so once you are logged into Barefoot, oh, and I've been logged out. Once you are logged into Barefoot, you will see at the top you have various kind of tabs. So I'm on the home page at the moment, but if I go to resources, I have different kind of options. So I have my different age groups, and this is the bit that I just mentioned, which is our new categorization of the resources. So for example, if I go into 7 to 9, it's now going to show me those subheadings. I'm only looking at 7 to 9 resources now. If I wanted to, so let's say I've got my free microbits, I've got a set of microbits, I can click on the plus, and it will show me any activities which are in that age group for that purpose. If I go into programming, expand it, there's always lots in programming, and you'll see, again, anything relevant. If I go into themed, for example, there's lots of Planet Protectors. There's a lovely one linked with climate, if that's what you happen to be looking at. So that's one way of finding resources. So to go to resources and then to go to the age group. You can, though, go down to all resources. And if you know the name of the resource you want, you can just type it in. So that's fine. But what you can also do is you can search in various ways, but you can search by curriculum. So you can see here I've chosen Scotland, and you can also search by age. So you've got your different age levels there. Or you can search in a number of ways. If you wanted to look for something cross-curricular, you could also use curriculum link. Sometimes I go into concepts and approaches. So for example, if I know I need to teach variables, but I'm just not quite sure how that could look, I could just choose to search by concept. So lots of different ways of searching. What you'll also find in that resources drop down is any featured resources, so whatever our new resource is. But you'll find these two online safety and cyber menus too. So the resources that I just mentioned, which were online safety or cyber, you can find from there. And you'll see some of those. So like the Fisherman, for example, is a game, but it has a whole activity plan to go with it. What else I'm going to show you? The workshops. So we also have, which I didn't mention, an at-home tab, which was designed for home learning, but actually has some really great learning together activities. So the Keep It Safe, Where's Wally style one is in there, but also the Cyber Snakes is in there, the Snakes and Ladders board. There's some really, really lovely activities in there, quick, a bit like the Barefoot Bites, quick activities. The Barefoot Bites, I should have mentioned, when we go into an age and we scroll down, under Don't Forget is the Barefoot Bites for that age. To book onto a workshop, you've got a Workshops tab, and you'll see here you've got the Computational Thinking Workshop, which is like the original one, the Programming and Scratch Workshop, and the Early Years Workshop. And it's very easy to just book places through that. If you want specific dates for the workshop, like if you're organising a school one, then you can just email us using the details on the site, and we can see what we can do. Curriculum tab will also show you the different curriculums for the different countries, and you've got links there which might be useful too. Okay, I think let's just go back to my slides. And we are pretty much there. So perhaps if you've got questions, or if there's any questions in the chat, Brian, just while I'm going through these, then please feel free to answer them. Oops. So you've got the Barefoot website. You've got a link to the workshops there, which can also be accessed from the Barefoot website. And you can also see where you can share or follow social media on the right. So hopefully that was a very quick but useful session on what there is in Barefoot, and perhaps you've started thinking already about, you know, something to have a look at or something to follow up on. Maybe it's a workshop, maybe it's an activity to check out, maybe it's the early years stuff to share with colleagues, but hopefully you found that useful.